All right, so app development's done. Our marketing plan is complete. Now that we have our app in the App Store and people are downloading it, we need a way to measure success. We need a few ways to do it. All right, so we're going to talk about metrics and principles. So by this time, you should have thoroughly researched not only your customers, but every aspect of your monetization plan. All right, you want to look at anything that could affect your success. And if you do this, then things should go as planned. All right, so I know these things are a little vague, so let's get a little more specific. So, number of installs and registrations. First off, the number of installs doesn't always equal success in terms of revenue. All right, it's not so much of a measure of your audience, but a measure of how much raw material you have to build an audience from. And registrations can be looked at as users that want to be a part of your audience. Okay, but it's important to know that not every interested user is going to register. Some people just don't give their information out to anybody, so they're not going to register. All right, a registration to installation ratio of 60 to 80% is pretty good. And this is very generalized because it really depends on the category of app. If you look at a business application and a game, someone's going to trust the business application more than trusting a game that's gone viral, giving them your information. All right, so that's important to know. So active audience size, the number of downloads and registrations is not the same as your active users. Your active users are the ones that are using your app actively on a set schedule. All right, and there's three basic metrics for active users. There's DAU, which is daily active users, WAU, weekly active users, and MAU, which is your monthly active users or monthly audience. So it's important to track your users and separate them into these different categories. Average session length, okay? This is a good measure to level your audience's engagement. This can let you know if your app is being used in the way that you intended. And there was some research by Localytics that said that app session lengths have increased by an average of 21% as of August 2014. All right, so you want to engage your users as long as you can. Retention rate. This is the percentage of users that stay with your app for a long time. All right, the first week after launch, this is measured daily. So how many first day users return the second day, then the third, and so on. And after that, you can measure by month. All right, so we have three different retention models that you can use to define your app's retention rate. The first one is the full retention model. This is where a fully engaged user would be one who visits your site every day up to the measuring cutoff date. And this model is the most accurate to use when trying to separate out your most active users. Next, we have the classic retention model. And this method records the amount of users who opened your app on day one and then whichever other day you decide. And this also calculates the percentage of those that returned. Next is the rolling retention model. Here, users that opened your app on day one and then again on a random control day that you specify. Churn rate. This is the rate at which you lose users. Okay, so it's the percentage of users that desert your app over a designated period. The rolling retention model can actually be used to find the churn rate, and it can also calculate the difference between initial audience size and the amount still using your app now. Next, we have lifetime, or LT. This is the average length of time a user will continue to use your app, and this can be calculated by dividing 1 with the churn rate. All right, so as an example, dating site users tend to stay around 4 to 5 months, and then gaming app players tend to stay only around 2 to 3 weeks. All right, so it depends on the type of app that you have. Stickiness. This is found by calculating the daily average users to the monthly average users. And this makes it possible to get an idea of how much your users are deeply engaged with your app. And again, this also depends on the category. Apps like Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp can expect a higher stickiness ratio. Average revenue per user, or ARPU. This is something that's measured over time, and the time period you'll use, depending on the time period you use, it can make a big difference. So if calculated over a quarter of a year or a half a year, it's likely to match the lifetime, but measured over a day, it's going to be significantly lower. And this is really helpful because it can tell you if your app's working or if it needs improvement, if it's working as expected or needs improvement. Efficient cost per install, or ECPI. This indicates your app's vital activity within the App Store ecosystem. And it essentially tells you if you're pulling users in or pushing them away. And it shows you what one installation costs you, which is very helpful. And not an average estimate, but the overall cost. Okay, lastly we have lifetime value, or LTV. This measures that your average user has during the whole time they use your app. So it basically tells you how much money each user is making you. And it determines the economic benefit of your advertising and can be used as the basis for evaluating budgets. LTV is usually the difference between your ARPU and total expenses attributed to that user. Okay. So those are just some of the things that you can use to measure the success of your mobile application.